What happens when we die? It's the oldest and most profound question humanity has ever asked. For thousands of years, the answer belonged to faith and philosophy. But now, in the sterile, brightly lit rooms of hospitals and labs, we've started looking for a different kind of answer, one that researchers believe points to the continuity of consciousness after death. Millions of people have stood on the edge of death and come back with incredible stories. They talk about leaving their bodies, moving through a tunnel toward a brilliant light. They describe seeing loved ones who have passed, reliving their entire lives in a flash, and feeling a sense of peace so deep it's hard to put into words. For many, these near-death experiences, or NDEs, are proof of an afterlife. A soul proof that consciousness is more than just a trick of our biology. But for decades, science has tried to offer a different story, one grounded in the physical mechanics of a dying brain. It's a story that suggests these profound spiritual experiences are just intricate hallucinations created by a system under stress. What if that tunnel of light wasn't a trick of a visual system shutting down, but a genuine gateway to another reality? What if that feeling of cosmic peace isn't a chemical flood, but a true spiritual embrace? And what if the accounts of consciousness functioning with verifiable accuracy, even when the brain is offline, are the very evidence that proves the soul exists? Today we pulling back the veil of pure materialism to look at the powerful evidence that challenges it. We're going to explore the cases and studies that suggest consciousness can and does function independently of the brain. From verifiably accurate out-of-body experiences to sight in the congenitally blind, we are going to deconstruct the purely biological explanation, piece by piece. This is the story of how the near-death experience, on the very brink of oblivion, might just be the most profound proof of a soul. You see a brilliant, welcoming light at the end of a long tunnel. Family members who've passed are there to greet you, and you're filled with a sense of peace you've never known. Millions who've stood on the brink of death report this same journey. For years, this has been dismissed as a trick of a dying brain. But what if it's real? What if people can actually see and hear things while clinically dead, with no brain activity? In this video, we're re-exploring the remarkable evidence for the soul from Landmark. University studies 2 medically documented cases to reveal how the near-death experience may be humanity's greatest proof of life after death. Section 1. The anatomy of an experience. Before we get into the evidence, we have to understand the experience itself. A near-death experience isn't just one thing. It's a tapestry woven from a collection of recurring powerful feelings and events. And while every NDE is personal, researchers have found a core set of features that show up with surprising consistency across cultures and belief systems. Scientists like Dr. Bruce Grayson have created scales to study these phenomena, giving structure to something that feels deeply spiritual. So, let's walk through the classic NDE piece by piece. The first and most common element is an overwhelming feeling of peace. People in horrific accidents or suffering from painful illnesses suddenly find themselves free of all pain and fear. It's replaced by a profound sense of calm. This isn't just the absence of pain. It's an active, positive state of bliss that's often described as the most wonderful feeling they've ever had. This peace is so powerful that for many, it erases the fear of death for the rest of their lives. Then, there's often one of the most famous elements, the out-of-body experience, or OBE. People report feeling like they're floating, their consciousness detaching from their physical body. They might look down from the ceiling and see their own body below, surrounded by doctors working to save them. They feel like a detached observer, watching a scene from a movie. It often feels hyper-real, sometimes even more real than everyday life. From this disembodied state, many then feel a sensation of movement. This is where the iconic tunnel comes in. It's often described as a dark space or a vortex, with a brilliant but not painful light at the far end. The person feels drawn toward this light, which is commonly described as radiating immense love and acceptance. It's not just something you see, it's something you feel. Upon reaching the light, another common element occurs, encountering other beings. Often these are deceased relatives who appear healthy and vibrant, there to greet them. Sometimes the beings are seen as religious figures or simply beings of light. The communication is often described as telepathic. No words are spoken, but thoughts and feelings are perfectly understood. After this, many people report a life review, This isn't just remembering things. It's a panoramic 3D reliving of their entire life, often from an outside perspective. They re-experience their actions, and crucially, the emotional impact those actions had on other people. It's often seen as a moment of profound moral clarity, where their life is judged not by what they achieved, but by the love they shared. Finally, many NDEs end at a boundary or a point of no return. It could be a bridge, a fence, or just a decision presented by the beings of light. They're told it's not their time and they have to go back, a choice often met with reluctance. The idea of returning to a broken, painful body is unwelcome after experiencing such peace. Yet the decision is made, and they feel themselves pulled back into their physical body, often with a jolt. The return to life leads to deep transformation. Researchers have found that these effects, like a decreased fear of death, more compassion, and a greater sense of purpose, are powerful and lasting. This consistent cross-cultural journey is what experiencers present as evidence of a reality beyond our physical bodies. This is the phenomenon that materialist science has to explain away. How can a dying brain create a story so coherent, powerful, and seemingly spiritual? The answer may be that it doesn't. The answer may lie not in a brain shutting down, but in a soul waking up. Section 2. The evidence that consciousness survives for a long time. The assumption was that when the brain dies, consciousness is extinguished. But a growing body of evidence, including large-scale university studies, challenges that idea at its core. These findings suggest the near-death experience isn't a final illusion, but a genuine window into a consciousness that can operate independently of the brain. The biggest challenge to the biological model is veridical perception. These are cases where people, during an out-of-body experience, report observing specific, verifiable details they couldn't have known through normal senses. One of the most famous cases is that of Pam Reynolds. In 1991, she underwent a radical brain surgery known as hypothermic cardiac arrest. Her body temperature was lowered, her heart was stopped, and the blood was drained from her head, causing her IG to become completely flat. She was, by all standards, clinically dead. Yet she later recalled specific details of the surgery, like describing the unique bone, saw as looking like an electric toothbrush, and hearing a female surgeon say her arteries were too small for the bypasser. Conversation confirmed by medical records. Researchers like Dr. Bruce Grayson have collected many such accounts, including a patient who accurately described his surgeon as peculiar habit of pointing with his elbows during an operation, a detail he couldn't possibly have seen. The AWARE study, a multi-hospital project led by Dr. Sam Parnia, investigated 2,060 cardiac arrest cases and found that 2% of survivors had full awareness with explicit recall of seeing and hearing actual events related to their resuscitation. One case was even validated by auditory stimuli. Dr. Parnia states that these lucid experiences cannot be considered a trick of a disordered or dying brain, but rather a unique human experience. Then there's the mystery of the blind seeing. Studies by researchers like Kenneth Ring have documented NDEs in people blind from birth. These individuals who have no visual memories and do not see in their dreams report clear visual perceptions for the first time in their lives. One woman, Vicky Umapeg, blind from birth, describes seeing her body from above. This directly challenges explanations based on retinal failure or the brain replaying stored visual memories, because these individuals have none to replay. Furthermore, the purely biological theories struggle with the data. The idea that NDEs are caused by a lack of oxygen hypoxia is not well supported. Dr. Grayson's research has shown that patients who have NDEs often have better oxygen supply to the brain than those who do NTE. The attempts by neuroscientists to trigger out-of-body experiences by stimulating the extemporoparietal junction TPJ in the brain have produced vague, disorienting sensations, nothing like the clear, hyperreal experiences reported in NDEs. These hard problems, veridical perception, sight in the blind, and the failure of simple biological explanations are not just anomalies. Too many researchers? They are positive evidence. They point to a reality where consciousness is not created by the brain, but perhaps received by it, like a signal. Mid-roll CTA. So, we've journeyed through the evidence that directly challenges the idea that death is the end of consciousness. It's a complex picture, and for many, a deeply hopeful one. It suggests that the most profound part of us may continue on. If you're finding this exploration as fascinating as I do, take a moment to subscribe and click the notification bell. We dive into complex topics like this every week. I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you find the evidence for a soul compelling, or do you believe there's a biological answer we haven't found yet? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's get back to it because we need to address the arguments from the other side. Section 3. The scientific objections to say the soul-based model is a complete answer without scientific objection wouldn't be the whole story. Mainstream neuroscience still operates on the principle that consciousness is a product of the brain, and it offers counterarguments that must be considered. The most prominent is the discovery of a surge of highly organized brainwaves, known as gamma oscillations, detected in the brains of dying patients even after the heart stops. Skeptics argue this electrical surge could be the brain's last recall, a final burst of activity that generates the entire NDE, including the life review. From this view, the experience is still happening inside the brain, even if that brain is in a highly unusual state. They also stand by physiological explanations for individual components of the experience. The tunnel of light, they argue, is still best explained by retinal ischemia, the shutdown of the visual system from the outside in. The feeling of peace is attributed to a flood of endorphins and other neurochemicals released under extreme stress. The out-of-body experience is theorized to be a malfunction of the temporoparietal junction, the brain's hub for integrating our sense of self. However, proponents of the soul theory argue these explanations fall short. A gamma surge in a dying brain is a correlation, not necessarily a cause. It could just as easily be the brain's physical reaction to the consciousness separating from it. Furthermore, these component-by-component explanations fail to address the holistic, coherent, and life-changing nature of the experience. They completely fail to account for the hard problems. How does a gamma surge explain how Pam Reynolds heard conversations and saw instruments while her brain had no blood flow? How does retinal ischemia explain how a man born blind can suddenly see for the first time? How does a glitch in the TPJ allow a patient to see a tennis shoe on a third-floor hospital ledge, as in the famous Maria case? These are the questions the purely biological model cannot yet answer, and they are what keep the door to a spiritual reality wide open. Conclusion. Meaning, in the evidence we've traveled to the edge of life and looked at the evidence that defines it, the materialist scientific view tells one story. The peace is from endorphins. The OBE is a brain glitch. The tunnel is retinal failure, and the life review is an electrical echo. From this perspective, the NDE is a powerful illusion created by a dying brain. But to dismiss it as just an illusion is to ignore the powerful evidence to the contrary. An experience doesn't have to be a hallucination to be real. The transformative power of these events is undeniable, changing people's lives by removing the fear of death and instilling a profound sense of purpose and love. Perhaps the ultimate truth of the NDE is that it shows us the limits of our current understanding. It reveals a phenomenon that consistently defies simple biological explanation. When people with no brain activity can report back verified facts, it is no longer just an anecdote. It is data. When a person blind from birth can describe seeing the world, it is no longer a story. It is a profound challenge to the idea that consciousness is confined to the brain. These accounts, supported by decades of research from credible figures like Dr. Bruce Grayson and Dr. Sam Parnia, suggest that the brain may be more of a receiver for consciousness than its creator. So when we ask that oldest question, what happens when we die? A new body of evidence is offering a revolutionary answer. It suggests we are not extinguished with our last breath. We are met by a continuation of our consciousness, a journey into a reality that is more, not less, real. This is not just a matter of faith, but an evidence-based proposition that the most essential part of us, our soul, truly does live on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the evidence for life after death. This is a topic that sits at the intersection of science, belief, and our deepest questions. I encourage you to continue the conversation in the comments. Share your thoughts, experiences, or questions. And if you want to explore more mysteries of the brain and consciousness, make sure you're subscribed and check out our other videos.
Nice.
Until next time, stay curious.